mentioned, today we're going to be talking a lot about vetting cloud solutions. Everyone's moving to the cloud, and there's a lot of capabilities you have when you move there. But this is all about making sure that as you get into evaluating these different cloud solutions, you're making sure that you're getting into something that's powerful but also safe. And so today we have a special guest with us right over here who knows so much about this stuff that his hair is falling out. So we have Mitch Greenwald, who's the founder and CEO of Cloudbakers, and we brought him in to talk basically about all the stuff that he knows so well.
All right, so for those of you who don't know Mitch's story, he was a CIO for a $400 million company, and in the downturn of the economy, he was asked to do more with less. So it's perfect for him to be giving this presentation because he did that research himself. He had to go through the vetting process to find the best solution to do more with less. So we have Mitch here. He knew that the cloud was the right place to go. And in the process, he realized that once he knew the cloud was the right place, he needed to find a company to help him migrate there. So when he couldn't find anyone else in the area, he decided to have a little fun and start Cloudbakers. So that is exactly what we do. So at this time, I'm going to pass it off to Mitch to actually go through this vetting process.
Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction there. And an interesting side note to what Ashley and Tristan were just saying is that prior to investigating the cloud technologies, I actually had to go through a multi-million-dollar security upgrade of our systems, and that was extremely painful. And I realized that with a proper checklist that we'll provide you today, that you could actually get that for a fraction of that multi-million-dollar cost that is basically included in the packages. And we'll go through this process of how you could actually select a cloud provider that could be a secure solution for you. What's interesting is that there's a lot of solutions out there, and when Ashley just used the term SaaS, we're really going to be talking about the software or the application aspect. Software as a service is what SaaS stands for. So we're going to be talking about the software and the application network. This is not on the infrastructure side or moving servers to the cloud. It's actually moving applications such as a messaging collaboration application or a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, maybe your accounting system, maybe your project management system. But they all have common themes. And there's all different types of software out there, and you have to choose the one that's right for you, that meets the right functionality for your system. So it's not a one-size-fits-all methodology. You need to still choose the right ones, and hopefully work with a partner that you could trust to help you with that. So when you're selecting these solutions and based on the security concerns, there really are 5 different ways to select your application and looking at the security. We've broken down to basically 5 components that you want to look at the processes that are out there to make sure that they're secure, like the physical processes that they might have, the certifications they have, the data, who owns your data, what's going on with your data, the technology that makes sure that they have world-class technology that's out there, as well as the people, and there's the legal aspects too. And we're pretty fond of the expression of go big or go home, that we really like to say, go with a big, stable cloud provider. And there's a number of them out there. That doesn't mean you just have to use 1 or 2. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of them out there. But when they go big, that means they have dozens, if not hundreds, of security engineers working and securing your environment. They have the certifications. They have the scale to do that. But one of the eye-opening things to me while going through this research is there is no way that my staff of 50 engineers could secure something the way Google or Microsoft could secure their data center, where they have hundreds and thousands of engineers working on these things. So it's very interesting to see that.
A lot of it's 24/7, right? I mean,
yep.
They have people there spending all day and all night.
Yeah, it's around the clock, 24/7 by 365 too. So the holidays and everything. Instead of spending your holidays upgrading your systems now, you could actually go out and enjoy your 4th of July parade or your Labor Day parade instead of having to be in the back room and upgrading software and and finding and always realizing there's one thing that you forgot to bring and then you have to run around like crazy. Actually, that's a great point, because there was an article in today's CRN magazine about the 10 worst cloud outages, and that there are outages that happened this year, and that's one thing you want to look for is reliability. And what was interesting was when there's a cloud outage, you kind of have to have some trust that they're going to fix it. And that's why go big or go home is so important. But these cloud outages last, when they talk about a big outage, one of the top 10 was 18 minutes. So that's usually even when you first get notified within 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So the people respond to these things very quickly, and it's very important for them to keep going. But in the past, there's 3 areas that we broke this down into: the maintenance, that maintaining software, upgrading software, patching for security holes, things like that. It's very interesting with security that if they find a security leak in a package in 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, that people had to apply that patch to do that to fix it. But just knowing that the security patch is out there leaves you vulnerable for that window of time that any hacker out there could realize that's open. With the cloud, they actually fix it on the fly, which is very interesting that you have these real-time updates to do that. So you don't have to worry about that maintenance, the backups, the server, the storage requirements, increasing your storage that you have, putting in new physical devices, really time-consuming. Data recovery, doing backups. People still use tape backups. A lot of people use tape backups. People go disk to disk, and that's also for every gigabyte of disk storage you have, you got to have one for your production, you got to have one for your backup, one for your hot backup, hot standby that you have, and then multiple other pieces depending on how many backups you keep, and also your tape rotations that you do, and then you have to have your off-site backup too. So, and then when you have an issue and you want to recover something, you have to go through and find the different versions that make sense, go through, and then hope that your software was backed up correctly, that you could restore it, that there wasn't an error in the tape or in the file, and then get it back. It's a very, very time-consuming effort. And then the other side is CapEx. So to set up these systems, it requires investments in hardware, backup hardware. You might, probably, if you're a substantial institution, you have to have a data recovery site. Then you have to have a replicate of everything over there, or a way to virtualize that in that environment. And it's very, very expensive to get these things off the ground. With the cloud solution, you pay generally a flat per user cost, either on an annual basis or a monthly basis, and it's strictly based on consumption. Another interesting thing when you're planning on buying servers, you have to say, well, we're at this size now. I'm going to have to plan for this capacity. I know that I have to keep 30% free at all time. So you have all this extra excess capacity that's not out there that you really want to say, why do I need that excess capacity? I'm paying for something I don't use when you could pay this predictable IT cost to have that in place. So what happens when you go to a cloud solution is, first of all, a great thing happens. You become almost always you become device agnostic or device independence, which means that I could use my cell phone, I could use my Chromebook, I could use my Macintosh, I could use my PC, I could use my Android tablet, my iPad, whatever I want to use to view the information. It's a very, very liberating effect to not be tied to a particular laptop, to say, oh, I forgot my computer in the office. Doesn't matter. You can log on securely in a browser at any other computer, just like you would a kiosk, and do that too. So that mobility aspect, especially in today's world where people are in different geographic locations, where they're flying on airplanes, or taking trains, or traveling all the time, and having remote teams working together, really, really interesting. The second thing is business alignment, getting people to work better together. A lot of these tools have collaboration features that let you use the mobile device, let you work on a Mac, let you work on a PC, and work on the same files instantaneously, and getting that going, which leads to increased productivity. And it's a very liberating process to see that also. And then the agility, being able to test new business ideas very inexpensively to see how well they work without having to have that huge investment in capital expenditure, and generally the huge investment in labor to actually get it going too. It's generally a much shorter term process. And then you can test the minimal viable product, or MVP, quite often people say, minimal viable product, and then just keep iterating over it and expand it until you really nail the business case of what you have to have. So just an example of some collaboration. This is looking at Google Docs, and you can just see that you can see multiple people are working on a document at the same time. This is really, really useful for, we just did something for board presentations where people are have to get multiple people together for a board presentation, presenting it in a unified fashion. You have to get multiple people's inputs. And then instead of passing documents back and forth, you can all work on the same document at the same time.
We did that for the slideshow. All
Yeah.
all three of us are in the same slideshow at the same time.
So that's a little bit of an overview of some of the benefits of going to the cloud. But you really have to protect your data. Oh, sorry, Tristan, I cut you off.
Not at all.
I'm really good at that. So I just, there's a few ideas of why you want to do it. But what are the tactics to get there? People are quite often concerned. They don't necessarily trust cloud solutions, but they can be trusted. You have to learn how to use them. There was a classic study that was done that people, are quite often, they have pretty much no fear of getting into a car and driving around. But getting into a plane and having someone else control it, having a pilot control it is a whole different story. And everybody takes that leap every day when they go into a plane to get into to fly somewhere. Well, a car, they don't even think twice about it. And it's interesting that cars have a much higher fatality rate than airplanes do. So sometimes you have to have that trust and understand that they're there and the reliability is there to do that. So we're going to go through each of these five pieces here, give a couple of key things to check out. If you go through this checklist, you should feel very comfortable with the solutions that you pick as far as the security goes. So on the data side, what's really important is it's on these cloud solutions for any that are worth their salt, that you own your data. And the ability to get your data in it and out of the system is paramount. So you have to make sure that there's an easy way for you as the end user or the administrator of the system, because there's still needed administrators and there's still configuration and you still have to monitor and maintain these systems, that you can get your data into the system and out of the system, and that you can get all your data in and out of the system. And it comes back in a structured format that lets you move them from one system to another fairly straightforward. And I was just talking to a prospect the other day, and they switched to an accounting system, and they didn't bring over all their historical data, and they can't get historical reports. They have to keep a separate system in place with their old data in it, and they can't get integrated reports across the two systems unless they use a third-party product. So bringing all your data in, or all the data that you ever want to use, is pretty important. And here's just the graphic here saying, okay, I want to go from Office 365 to Google for Work or vice versa, be able to do that pretty seamlessly. And these are the two major cloud providers of email, calendar, and collaboration solutions that are out there. One of the interesting parts about, maybe a secret that no one really wants to tell you is that moving from on-premise to a cloud is definitely a paradigm shift for you. But what happens when you're in the cloud, moving from one cloud provider to another is fairly straightforward process. So you don't have these long-term vendor lock-ins that you might have had in the past. So these products have to live on their own merits and their own success. But step number one, checkbox number one, be able to get your data in and out of the system very easily. So you can migrate data in when you start up, and then if you choose that you want to end the relationship, that you can get your data out and do that. Yeah. There might be a small fee to do that, like $10 being a small fee to get your data out sometimes, but as long as you can do that, that's a great way to do it.
It's really, if you think about this should be a requirement of everything. Almost everything's in the cloud now anyway, but my team specifically deals with getting email and all this data out of the servers and systems they're locked into already. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it feels like it's being held ransom. It's just so hard to get out, Or if you can get it out, it's in a format that's proprietary to that provider. It just takes forever.
So on the technology side, I'm going to give you a couple of checkpoints here too. So make sure that so the cloud is really just a set of servers that are out there that are connected together, that are built for failure, being failure that if one system fails, that they'll pick up somewhere else and you'll have a high degree of reliability, basically. So when you deal with somebody, if they just have one data center or they're hosted, and they have a couple machines in one place, you got to be a little bit leery of that. So just make sure that they have 2 or preferably 3 or more locations, and that's why we say go big. A lot of the players we have would have dozens of data centers. Having 4 or 5 is a great place to go. And make sure that they have a good backup strategy and a restoration strategy to restore the data back in place. So So number 2 would be make sure that you have multiple locations for their systems. Also, an interesting part about the cloud as it is now is that it's much easier to integrate systems together. So if you want to integrate your accounting system with your project management system, if you want to integrate your accounting system with the reporting system, or your CRM with a marketing automation system, that they have to have these open APIs so they can interoperate together with other systems and make sure that there's a secure authentication between those also. So that's the third thing that you really want to do to make sure that you have a good system in place. And those APIs can also be used for auditing and reporting, so you can actually see what's going on in the system. A fourth checkbox here would be a two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. It might be multiple factors that you can use. And what two-factor authentication means is that you have a password, which is something you know, and then you also have something that you have, like a cell phone. And the cell phone can text you a code to log into your system. So when you log in, you have to know a password and you have to get a code, or it might be an encryption key that you might have also. There's also other ways to do this too, whether it's a retinal scan, a palm scan, a fingerprint scan, and I think that these biometric methods of doing identification, authentication, are going to be predominant. As you know, on a phone, quite often you have a fingerprint scan to get on. It'll work very, very reliably. It's a very secure way of doing this.
Yeah, and that's been in the news a lot lately too. Multi-factor authentication is sort of becoming a requirement of every, not just a corporate cloud service, but personal clouds, as well. Your Gmail account, your Facebook account. If you can get, Amazon, if you can get an extra factor for logging in, that's almost necessary because it's trivial for somebody. Hackers are getting more and more sophisticated. It's trivial for them to get your password. So if they happen to do that, what's the next step? How are they going to get your phone? Not from Somalia anyway.
Yeah. and actually, that's a great point because and two-factor authentication is great if they have it available, but also you have to implement it. You have to turn it on and use it too. Just because they have it, that's a great to check it off, but you actually have to execute it too. And I think this is really the number one thing that could secure your systems, because quite often, and it really secures your system from phishing attacks of someone spoofing a website or an email that says click here, and they ask you to log into something that looks just like your bank account, or just like some other secure account that you want to have. They do that, and then they steal your credentials, and then you're off and running. The two-factor authentication really almost shuts down those phishing attacks completely.
Yeah. So number one, is it allowed or is it enabled? Number two, can you enforce it? You definitely want that in the business.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then the fifth piece here is that you want to really have open authentication in place, so they have a way that if you have multiple systems to be able to have a single sign-on capability across multiple systems. And Microsoft has an Active Directory that you could use. Google has their Google Authentication. There's products out there like Okta that actually have this. There's other ones that are out there, and there's a standard called SAML that actually, if they implement SAML 2.0, you're pretty good that there's authentication tools in place to do that. And what this allows you to do is seamlessly sign on once and then have multiple systems available to you and have that in place to do that. Okay, so we covered those areas. So let's go on to process. And process is really important because you could have all the technology in place, but you want to make sure that people are in place to support you, and that they also have processes that are certified by multiple agencies. And there's a lot of acronyms or terms that are thrown out, but some of the common ones are ISO 27001. If they have a certification like that, that's really good, and that includes the technology and a process. SSAE 16, which used to be a SAS 70, actually. It's been, for some reason, they like to change the acronyms of what they represent, but having something like that. And SOC 2 compliance also is really good that come up. And then there's also industry-specific ones that might be other, like the HIPAA certification for healthcare too. And this is just an outside auditing firm or council that actually verifies that they are secure, that they have secure processes in place, that their facilities are secure, that they have good backup procedures in place, that they train their people right, that their people follow, great standard operating procedures, and they have all things like that in place.
Yeah, and make sure too that, we talked about this a little bit, very recently, there's a difference between someone being, SOC 2 compliant and SOC 2 certified. Compliant means they're following all the rules, and that's really great. Certified means that a third party has actually verified that, worst case scenario, all those guidelines protected something bad from happening.
Okay, great, Tristan. That's so true. The another thing is you want the system to have some reporting features, and you could have visibility on how the system is being used. You want to see how people are using the system. You want to have audit logs of who's made changes in the configurations, and you want to see reliability. Have a lot of the vendors have, almost all of them actually have an app status page or some sort of status page that says when the system's been up, so you can see what's going on. So you say, oh, the system's down, what's going on, so you could actually see a status and see what's getting updated. So at 18 minutes I talked about earlier, this is a great use case of that. You go look at that and see what's going on and say, we're working on it. They're working on it. And then you just, you generally have to wait a minute. We once did a presentation a couple of years ago, and there was an outage actually during the presentation, which, it doesn't really happen that often. Right beforehand, we're going, oh no. So we just use the offline mode. We go, we know that this is going to be up in minutes. We kept on going to the presentation. When we were ready to demo the system was back up and running, boom, without not having to do anything, so keep on doing our normal work. It's a great story. And then you want an SLA is a service level agreement, and you want a service level agreement in place that meets your business needs. 99.9% is pretty much the place that most people are. That means that it's just a few minutes a month that the system are down. And you just want to know ahead of time. It's up to your business whether it's important or not. But whether that SLA is 24 by 365, or whether there's maintenance windows in there too, because they might have some maintenance windows that they do something, but as long as it doesn't affect you and you can live with it, that's fine. But you should know those ahead of time and what they're doing. But 99.9% uptime means that for every 1,000 minutes that are out there, that it's running for 999 minutes. So that's a pretty good uptime. And it takes, to get that type of uptime in your own systems is very, very, very difficult to do that.
Yeah, and you should be able to verify that with the reporting feature, the reporting, and the, hey, are we down right now? A status dashboard of some kind. You can look back through the past month or 2 months and see, how often they've been out, if they've been out at all. Like you said, it's minutes a month, if at all. So there should be a way to track that down. I think it's a red flag if you can't look back and see what the outage is.
And then there should also be, they should actually have a penalty built in your contract too, that they have might be minimal with some sort of penalty, that there's some sort of consequence if they don't meet that uptime also. So let's go to the people aspect of this a little bit too. So you want to make sure that there's that they have support that's out there for you, that you can call somebody up or email somebody, and that you can get some response. Maybe it's an online chat, but you want to make sure that the support channels are sufficient to what you need, or that they work with a partner that can provide you the type of support you want also. And make sure that they're knowledgeable people, that they're certified people, that they have actually these certifications there to be able to, Microsoft certified, Google certified, if they're Salesforce certified, if they're QuickBase or QuickBooks or Intact or any of these other systems, that they make sense that they actually have those certifications in place. Very, very key. And then all of our favorite ones, for your lawyers out there, the legal issues. So as I said at the earlier pieces, it's actually interesting since that people say, well, I don't want to give up my data. I don't trust my data there. The terms and conditions that you should be able to look at should very clearly say that you own your data. And you probably want to say that they don't do anything else with your data, like sell it to other people or sell it to advertisers or use it for other purposes that aren't there. It's okay to say that they use it to do spam filtering and virus protection, things like that actually are meeting the needs of the customer, but you don't want to be able to, they should not be able to monetize your data except for the purpose of the application you're using to provide that application to you. So just make sure you own your data, really key. And there's usually a very clear clause in most contracts to do that. And then, you still have to do your homework and look at your contract terms and conditions to make sure they're aligned with your business. So what I said before about the scheduled maintenance, make sure that it's, that it's not going to affect your business. If there's other things that make sense to you about, where the data centers are located, where the data is located is important to you, make sure that's outlined and make sure that you're protected appropriately to do that. You still have to do your homework there. So I'm going to just go back. So what's really interesting about this is that there's a, that you have it's pretty straightforward to figure out what's going on and how to become, get to be secure when moving to a software as a service application. But what happens is that vetting these applications is really important. So a lot of the work in these third-party applications that you're sometimes you have people that go, especially your business people, especially in your technology group, go from being something of a hardware person to a vendor management person. They have to manage the vendors, and then they have to also go to how do I configure these systems? These systems have to be configured to meet your business needs. So how do I configure them, and how do I get them to interoperate together, whether it's a single sign-on, authentication, whether it's using the APIs to integrate systems together. And it's becomes much more of a business process and lets IT and the technology team really become a helper in your business goals rather than a roadblock. And it's basically turning things around, and they actually are working with the business teams, and it's a little bit different about the technology team's work. Here's a quick overview of the points that we talked about. As far as the checklist goes, if you want anything more, I think that our email address is at the end, and we can send you these. But getting your data in and out of the system, support, employee certifications, make sure you own your own data, that the contracts T's and C's meet your needs, that the cloud vendor has multiple locations and backups and is built for failure and resiliency, that they have these open APIs, that they have multi-factor authentication, really key, open authentication standards, that they follow those, that they have appropriate certifications to make you feel comfortable that your data is safe with them, that you could report and audit on your data in there, and that they have an SLA or service level agreement that meets your needs.
Would you say that on this whole checklist, Mitch, that these are mostly, if you're missing a checkbox, it's kind of a deal breaker?
Not necessarily, but if they're missing multiple checkboxes, it could be a deal breaker. And those are things that you have to say, well, can I live with that? I think getting data in and out of the system is a deal breaker. I think owning your own data is a deal breaker. I would almost say the two-factor authentication. If they didn't have an open API, if there's another way to do it, you can do exports and imports based on filters. There might be a way to get around that. Multiple locations of backups, I would think that's a total deal breaker.
Yeah.
By having at least 3.
It's almost not even the cloud. It
Right.
doesn't have more than one location.
Exactly. A lot of people use the term. It's not almost. It's not a cloud
It's
solution.
not all right.
So anyway, so there's a couple that would be that, open authentication. You don't have to have that, but if you really like the product and want to live with that, I would think that'd be a good thing too.
Yeah, I was just running down the list of all the things that we use here at work and the people we partner with, and I think they check off all the boxes.
Oh yeah.
Like, we don't really deal with services that don't hit all these points.
And we're born in a cloud company. We don't have a single server. All we have is a network connection, usually wireless. We're completely mobile, using multiple devices. And when people start up here, we say, what kind of machine do you want? Boom. What kind of phone do you want? Boom. You're all set up and going. So, okay. And then, so going back there, then what you have is this whole, and you could actually put out a strategy where you kind of have your on-premise systems that have each of these pieces located there. And then you can say your strategy, which is the biggest piece, and we quite often say messaging collaboration is really the number one low risk, high reward thing you can move in there. And then the CRM and some of the line of business apps are kind of a lot too. And then things that connect all of them together are kind of like the third thing to do. Accounting and finance, great way to go. Having a cloud platform to build these things in the cloud, really important. And then there's a lot of third-party marketplace apps that are out there that are add-on apps that add a real lot of value, whether it's a project management, whether it's a reporting tool, whether it's some sort of integration, really, really key. And then you could all do this through a web browser. We use Chrome a lot, but really they should be browser. If it's browser dependent, I would say that would be a watch point that you have to be very, very careful about. But having browser independence is really key. Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch.
Okay.
Thank you.